Commands and sanction. Sanction is an evil which will be incurred of a command is if a command is disobeyed and is the means by which a command or duty is enforced. It is wider than punishment. A reward for obeying the command can scarcely be called a sanction. A command embraces a wish or desire conceived by a rational being to another rational being who shall do or forbear. An evil to proceed from the former to be incurred by the latter in case of non-compliance, and an expression or intimation of the will by words or otherwise. Commands are of two kinds, general and particular. A general command is a law or rule where it obliges generally to acts and forbearances of a class. All commands are not law. It is only the general command which obliges a course of conduct is law. Which obliges to a course of conduct is law. Particular command, it is occasional or particular when it obliges to a specific individual act or forbearance. Law is a command of sovereign which obliges a person or persons to a course of conduct. It requires significance and can therefore only emanate from a determinable source or author, a person or body of persons. Thus, Austin resolved every law into a command of the lawgiver, an obligation imposed thereby on the citizen, and a sanction threatened in the event of disobedience. Exception to the above definition, the general commands are the proper subjects of the study of jurisprudence. But according to Austin, there are three kinds of laws which, though not commands, are still within the province of jurisprudence. These are declaratory or explanatory laws. Austin does not regard them as commands because they passed only to explain laws already in force. Laws to repeal laws. These too are not commands but are rather revocation of a command. Laws of imperfect obligation. These laws have no sanction attached to them. Now it is clear that in Austin's conception of law, such notions as justice or morality have no place. The basis of law is the power of superior and not the ethics or the principles of natural justice. Austin stands with absolutists like Hobbes, etc., in regarding laws as the command of the sovereign. Thus, the main propositions of Austin's theory are as follows. The most important function of the state is the administration of the justice. It is carried by the means of rules drafted by the central authority or sovereign in the state, what are called laws. The special characteristics of these rules is that they are in the form of commands entailing punishment in case of disobedience. The central authority or sovereign who issues these commands or laws is himself above the law, and therefore his powers are unlimited by law. The central authority or sovereign does not share this power with anyone, and therefore sovereignty in idea is indivisible also. Criticism of the Austinian theory of law. The imperative theory of law is criticized on the following grounds. Sovereign is not the only source of law. Besides, sovereign customs, usages, and religion are also the important source of law. According to many, the interdependence of law and sovereignty is not true of Oriental communities, and he refers to the Punjab under Ranjit Singh, who according to Wise and Winfield was a tax taker and not a lawmaker, and his people were governed by the rules of immemorial customs, usages, and religion. It never occurred to Ranjit Singh that he could change the civil rules under which his subjects live, and it is doubtful if he could have changed them without provoking widespread rebellion. Thus, a strong rule like Alauddin and Ranjit Singh of Punjab were despotic, yet they could not ignore the customs and religious practices of the people. Replying to the above criticism, Holland says that in Punjab as in other Oriental countries, Ranjit Singh may not have made any law, but anyone obeying these rules would soon feel the might of Ranjit Singh's arm. The question in Eastern and Western societies is not who makes the law, but who maintains it. Law is older than state. Manet's second criticism is that law is older than state. Even primitive organizations had laws to govern them in the shape of customary or religious rules. These organizations developed into the state, and the state had to recognize these rules as laws. As Salmon puts it, early law it is said, is not the command of the state. It has its sources in the custom and religious opinion, not in authority vested in a political superior. It is not till a comparatively late stage of social evolution that law assumes its modern form and is recognized as a product of supreme power. Law, therefore, is prior to the interdependent of political authority and enforcement.